In this lesson, we're going to take a closer look at interaxial separation and zero parallax concepts to understand how to set up better stereo. Now, stereoscopy tricks your eyes to move it to images, and it's actually possible to create bad stereo images that can cause headaches or even worse, nausea. You see, the problem only occurs when the stereo effect is too strong, and the most important factor to set correctly is the distance between the two cameras, or as we've seen before, the interaxial separation. Whenever you're looking around in the real world, the furthest your eyes will ever go apart is when you're staring at something that's very far away. When you do this, the eyes become parallel, and it's possible for a bad stereo image to do the same thing, which is to cause our eyes to diverge or point away from each other. Our eye muscles are just not used to doing this, and it can cause headaches, general discomfort, beyond breaking the stereo effect. Now, adult eyes are usually 65 to 75 millimeters apart. We need to make sure that our final image never has more than that amount of separation between the red and the blue images. This is only an issue with objects that are very far away from the depth of the screen. And Houdini's default separation is about 75 millimeters. So, you need to keep in mind not just those factors, but also how large your screen is going to be, how close the viewer is going to be to the screen, and also the total depth of the scene. All of these factors come into account. So, for example, if you only have a single object in front of a blurry background, you can actually increase the separation because the scene has a very shallow depth. Now, alternatively, or on the other hand, if you have a long landscape scene, you need to be careful of too much separation because at the furthest point of the scene, you're going to have a very wide overlap, which can lead to the parallel viewing. So you need to keep all these factors into account because these will change from scene to scene. Now, we run into a similar but less damaging problem when the object is too far in front of the zero parallax point or too close to us. Our eyes have to cross slightly to see the negative parallax of the object coming out of the scene. If the object comes too close, our eyes have to cross too far and we end up losing the stereo effect. Our eyes naturally cross when we're looking at something close, so it's not as bad as divergence. However, it will still break the stereo effect and make the viewer unable to fuse the scene into a coherent image. It'll end up breaking the experience, simply put. Now, a good rule of thumb is to make sure that no object should be closer to the camera than half the distance to the zero parallax plane. This is also depends on the separation between the images as well. So this would be another instance where you might need to lower your interaxial separation. One last thing we have to keep in mind is also the framing of the scene. Because we're using two views, objects can be cut off by the edge of the scene at different points. So it's always better to make sure that no focal object is breaking the frame of the shot. Inevitably, background elements will need to go up to the edge, and this won't cause issues unless you direct the viewer to that particular edge. Having things popping out of the screen and partially off frame is the most jarring since your brain cannot fuse that edge or the way that edge looks like when it's on the screen while the majority of the object is close to you. So, by keeping in mind the maximum separation for both objects very far and very close, we can create an enjoyable stereo experience that will keep the viewer immersed throughout the entire film.